So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Let's make some silence first. So once again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. This will be the last Satsang from this series. Who knows when it come back, if it will come back. For the time being, this is last one. So these days, there are lots and lots of new theories about quest for truth. It's kind of like talking about the modern seeker of truth, and there's nothing modern about quest for liberation. Absolutely nothing new. It is the same quest, the same difficulties, just a slight change in circumstances. That's it. Because all else is the same. You look at worldly people with their worldly goals, and we can observe this more or less. Of course, there's always exceptions that can come from many reasons, but a common aspect is this: majority of people have a difficulty in delaying rewards, in just working and investing without reaping the fruits and enjoying. There's a very big need to enjoy. So worldly people in worldly environments, the majority, they earn their pay so that they can enjoy life. They don't build wealth because they earn it and they spend it, and they try to do things from the bottom to the top. They try to do things from the bottom with less responsibility involved, with less investment in themselves, in their skills, in their personal set of skills. They were born just to be there without any problems. And we see a very small percentage of these worldly people with worldly goals, one-pointed, focused, using all their time into creating what they're going to work on, invest, to develop capabilities, to strive, to use all the time they have to work and more work and more work and more work. And usually this is those who come at the top of the social pyramid in terms of income, responsibilities, power, and all of this. And if you look at what these people say, they don't tell you that. Probably only when they're old they could have said so, but very different. It's very difficult for it. They will not tell you, look, you have to live your life moderately, you have to learn to balance your family time with your job, with your work, and all of this. And you should only work 40 hours a week so that you have the rest of the. They will not tell you this. They will say, if you want to succeed, you have to give the maximum. And beyond that, you have got to give everything you have, put it into it. No balance is mentioned. But this is difficult because majority of people, they absolutely need to enjoy life at every moment because they're miserable. This is why they need it so much. And they lack the stamina and all these qualities, aspects needed to strive. So quest for liberation is more or less the same. There's these theories, modern theories, which is quite interesting. They are sticking. Well, they are sticking because there's a need for it. There's a market for it. And there's a need for those to enjoy. But that's not really enjoying. It's only maintaining their misery. But balance, when we talk about balance, everybody talks about Buddha's balance, the story of Buddha and his balance. Well, yeah, but you see, Buddha didn't have a part-time job or a full-time job and was not doing a lot of other things, going out, hanging out with friends, this and that. He was completely immersed in the quest for liberation. He was a renunciant. And this balance that is talked in the quest for liberation has nothing to do with worldly life and worldly activities and spiritual life and spiritual activities. No, it's about the intensity and motivations that are attached to your efforts in the quest for liberation. So the intense fastings, for example, that Buddha did, all those things that he did, well, the balance in it, it wasn't in the activity itself, but in the motivations attached to it. And still, for sure, as he was a seeker of truth, he was not an awakened one. So he had impurities, he had all those things that everybody has to work with. And if these intense investments were tainted by spiritual greed, then this moderation, because the moderation, the balance, talks about not polishing, it's not the word, but see, spiritual greed, it's like a horse kicking in the air and running wildly. And this balance is this wild horse that kicks and runs towards his desires, starts to learn to go wherever you're leading, where the divine qualities are leading. So the intensity remains, but the anxiety which is connected to him because of the greed, this slows down, slows down. So it's like, instead of this rajasic investment, like, okay, so I'll do big uh, this big fasting and this will solve it, or I'll do this intense tapas and this will solve it. This is what needs to come down to purify. So the balance is always in context, into the context of things. It's not a general rule that you apply everywhere. But for the quest of liberation, it's even more difficult than being the top 1% of worldly life. The level, the amount of dedication has to be at least the same. But it has to go even higher because, well, these CEOs, these top 1% of people that can really focus 100%, dedicate all their time, they even sleep less because all time is precious. But surrender is not involved. Maybe in a way, but it is an egotistical endeavor, so it's easier in a sense, because that can be fueled by greed. By greed, you will get the results in the quest for liberation. The greed will delay the results, will block the results. So more focus is needed. And you don't need to be Superman to do that, or Superwoman. You just need to apply all you have in it. And as you're applying all you have in it, the rest will come. But without that, and these modern day theories, they have what? 20 years? 50 years? I will not say 70 years, because those who are reaching the 70s, they are realizing that maybe that was not a good idea. But still, having more or less a worldly life and making some intellectual dance with the teachings doesn't bring about anything. So for everyone, until guidance says otherwise, and especially those who are still immersed with worldly activities, intense meditation is a must, is a need. And for those who have been able to enter the sacred space of living presence of the spiritual process, they know it's very difficult to enter and it's very easy to lose. Vibration falls down very quickly. And to make it higher, a lot of discipline is required and intensity. and intensity. And to be outside this life of the spiritual process, it's nothing. It's even worse than nothing because, well, you have the teachings, then you have your experiences, and you start to build concepts, ideas about as a product of these two. These teachings, you're reading them in books, observing satsangs, and you're not questioning them. You're not asking the questions when you're uh, listening in a satsang. You don't ask the questions, but what do you really mean about that? No, you take it for granted that you have understood. But what have you understood? You have understood what's possible for you to understand according to your level of perception, consciousness, awareness, and all of that. And usually what you understand is what you can understand. What does that mean? Your mind will give you the conclusion that less threatens its own balance, its own reality. As you are facing the master and you're asking a question, he's giving an answer. You can, if you want, but what does that really mean? Does it mean this that I've understood? Then the master can say, and he will for sure say, no, has nothing to do with that. And he will continue until you finally understood, because to understand something like that, it's like opening up layers and layers of protection until it touches the core. And when it touches, those structures tremble. Books don't do that. Online satsangs don't do that. But why are you in an online satsang and not in a present pre present? Wow, it doesn't come out. In presence, that's not the word, but that's what we'll use. Why aren't you there? Because you're busy with your life. And it seems that everything is going to you, but it isn't. But it isn't. So in presence, it's very different. I can assure you that. Many times I'm speaking and then seekers will say, oh yes, I understood. It means this and this and this and this. And or they come to me, oh, the other day you said this and this and this. And of course I have to say, no, I said no such thing. What I meant was this and this and this and this. And if the person stays quiet and says, oh yes, now I understand, probably it hasn't. If it asks again, I will have to correct again. No, not that. This and this and this and this. Because the structures of the mind are in such a way that understanding is very relative to what you can understand, to what is possible for you. People say, for example, many times, I've never found a living master. I only found it in books. I heard this recently. And I usually ask about, but can you deal with a living master? Because it's more comfortable to watch it in books. Books don't challenge. And if they do, you can take it because there's no personal aspect involved, no friction involved for you to have an instinctive reaction or withhold that instinctive reaction and hold on to sacredness. It doesn't, there's no one involved. It's like reading a book and talking to God. It's almost like the same thing. Well, for the majority, because God will not challenge you in that moment, may challenge you later, indirectly, but rarely in that moment. So it's easier if you have a big ego. Nothing will clash with it. The book doesn't clash with your ego. And you can read something and then elaborate about what you're reading, and then you will absorb it. Even those things that you feel that they have touched a nerve, that you're doing wrong, with a little bit of time, your mind adapts everything it has understood to adapt it to the vision of your logic of your life. The master will not allow that. And as you start rebuilding something, you will go there and hit it again. So many times, one of the reasons that you don't find a living master is because there's no need for it. What would you do with one? Would you even survive it? Would you even recognize it to be one? So everything changes when you're devoting your most precious asset to it, which is time. All your experiences change. Everything changes. When it's just another area in your life, when there is no intense meditation, then it's nothing. Was it too much, this nothing? Nah, it wasn't too much. And for what I've seen so far, those who are dealing with these teachings and without intense meditation, without the discipline, they are creating, enhancing, fortifying beliefs that are completely misplaced. And it doesn't matter how long it matters, because the more time passes, the more these beliefs will be crystallized, and then it's more difficult to break them. And all these teachings became an obstacle to liberation instead of a help. So trusting your mind in the quest for liberation doesn't matter how intelligent you think you are. It's like an adult giving full control of his life into the hands of a 2-year-old. More or less the same. Doesn't matter how intelligent you are. Because you're walking the labyrinth of the mind, and those corridors, they have been pre-designed to take you to specific places. And it's not about liberation. So nothing new about quest for liberation. Nothing new. Just some new theories that eventually will burn out. But with that, a lot of time lost. A lot of time lost. And those, for example, which I've seen that were in their 70s a few years ago, that to have a chance would have to go to kindergarten, but they couldn't because they've gone a long way, so they think. Now there's nothing to do. And that is sad. It is what it is. So eventually, those who have a serious quest, and mark these words, those who have a serious quest, who are deluded with these modern day theories, eventually will see how much time they have been wasting. And if you want to discover that, it's easy. Easy, but still difficult. Intense meditation with discipline, it reveals a lot. Oh, I'm practicing this staying at the heart in any posture, whatever, and I'm reaching some silence. My silence has been growing a lot. Why do I need to sit straight and silent? Why? It has nothing to do with the body. And that is true. But if you are reaching that level of silence that you are saying, and it has nothing to do with the body, so if you sit straight for a long period of time, no negativities will rise. None of that. No restlessness, no agitation. That silence will still remain there, will still be there, because it has nothing to do with the body. And then the test is made. Ta-da! Noise, agitation, restlessness, negativities, impossibility to sit straight, because it was creating and amplifying comfort zone, deviating from friction. That is not silence. And if you are living in a spiritual community and all of this, that everybody is more or less working this outer aspect of being more nice, more sympathetic, more accepting, and all of these things, it becomes easier, more comfortable. But life will not be like that always. And eventually winter comes. It's easier to avoid winter in these circumstances, but you cannot avoid it forever. To reach real silence, real stillness, you will have to go through the barriers of where consciousness gets more brushed and identified. And first is physical stillness, then emotional, then mental stillness. There's nothing new. Nothing new. And the tests that come in the spiritual path, they are there for you to reveal, to see, to show what is your level of commitment, to bring about your strength, your inner strength, because you will need it on the long run. So everything has a purpose. So as you sit for meditation, we can see that people start to move around and then getting pillows and stuffing pillows in there. And as they cannot solve it, as they intensify it, they ask, how should I avoid this pain of meditation? And the answer is, why should you be avoiding that pain in meditation? It has a point there, and it will disappear when that point is fulfilled. And that is to increase your stamina, to help your mind really achieving equanimity. You're trusting on pillows to achieve equanimity. You're trusting and waiting for others' kindness to achieve equanimity. And you should be embracing the opposite. because that's not real equanimity, where there's no friction. If you're comfortable, of course your mind will be equanimous, but that's not equanimity. Now, in the middle of discomfort, let's see what equanimity rises up. And the more you practice it at a high intense level, the more you hold your grounds when storms come. Because if you have to take it beyond what the storm can do, what will the storm do when it comes? You've gotten used to work at that level of intensity. So when the storm comes, and it will come, you'll be able to deal with it. It's always going to be a storm. But it doesn't mean that you enter a hurricane and you lose your mind completely and you don't know how to do things. You will keep your focus because you have been working at a higher level than that. But usually, normally, it's just some spiritual practice or some reading or something like that, avoiding, oh, this person is harsh and judgmental and all of this, so I will avoid it. This is, so I will avoid it. I will go to this place and that person and this person because, well, it's more shanti and more spiritualized and all of that. And you're missing the point. And you're expecting that your mind gets well treated, suited, respected, accepted, and all of this. And this is just worldly undertaking. Because the master will pick up your mind, will punch it, rip it open, crush those structures inside, and then leaves a little bit of rest. Then he does it again and again and again until you learn how to do it yourself. Then he just observes and gives you some tools if you need. But as you start doing it, you are having a distance from it. You and the mind are not one anymore. Distance has been conquered a little bit, and it will increase more and more, more and more, more and more. And when it reaches a level of distance, now attention may drop the mind and stay into itself, self, with identity. And this is where dissolution starts. All the rest is just dance of preparation. But if this me and mind are more or less the same, just walking around, just wasting time, wasting time. So my body has a serious issue in sitting. The storm doesn't come and go. It's always here. Well, that's a good sign from one part, but it can, well, that depends on the condition it has. So probably some adjustment has to be done because the storms that I'm talking about, it's not from physical discomfort from the sense that, okay, so I've broken my leg, for example, and it's hurting. It's not that discomfort. It's the discomfort that rises from stillness. So this is why, you see, joints are a place where a lot of density gets accumulated. And when you sit, there is the physical aspect, I don't know how to say that, anatomical aspect. For example, in the West, we are not used to sitting cross-legged. So there is a question which is not related to that storm that I'm talking about. So in this case, it's better to sit in a chair. What I'm talking about is the discomfort that comes after you're sitting motionless, focusing on the meditation technique, and the vibration is going higher and higher. As it becomes going higher, acute pains, intense pains, burning pains will start, because this rising of vibration reveals the densities in the body. So this is the kind of storm I'm talking about. Because, well, if you smash your face into the wall, it will hurt, and that's not really meditation. It can be a good exercise for some things, but not of what I'm talking about. So if there's something connected to posture or some problem in the body, then it has to be addressed to that particular circumstance. So the chaos that I'm talking is the chaos that arises from stillness. That stillness reveals. Because as you are implementing stillness by being still, motionless, and focus, because your body can be still, and your mind can just be moving around freely as you are holding on to both, then chaos starts rising, the storm starts rising. First ones is at the physical level. And if you persist, this goes by very quickly. And that's usually a matter of perseverance. Yeah. I'm not sure if this is the word in English. To insist, to persist. For example, if you do it alone, nobody's watching, there's no one there, probably in 10 minutes you are adjusting your posture. But if you're in front of a master and you respect the master for being a master, and he says, no movement whatsoever, no matter what happens, your time will stretch for sure. For sure. And see, silent stillness has to increase. Real silence, real stillness. And I've already talked about the difference when it's just a mental construct, when you're avoiding friction, when you're avoiding difficulties. That silence that you're calling silence, it's no silence. It's peace, but in the absence of conflict, and that it's not real peace. And in your mind, there may be progress seen, but other levels will reveal you that same behaviors will be there. There will be a lot of clues for those who want to see. So your silence has to be increasing. But why am I saying this? Your mind will interpret this in the way that it needs. So, how did these people that I observe got to the conclusion that their silence was increasing? And then they sit for 10 hours in meditation and they realize, no. How did they get to this conclusion? Well, because this was the conclusion needed, and they are mind driven. And the mind gets to the conclusions it needs to justify the reality it experiences. The good part and especially the bad parts of it. Everything helps to maintain the balance. Okay. So for today, that's it. And for this series of satsangs, that's it also. If there are questions, well, you can send and I will see. But there's a lot of things on the YouTube channel and Instagram. So everything was already answered and re-answered. But if there's something new to be answered, I will make the answer and make it available. Not for this from this channel, through online satsang, at least not for now. Okay. Pode desligar.